Hello. If there's any movement here, it's because my cat is she's laying on me right now. um, so welcome. I thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, see, she's kind of getting a little mobile. Here, I'll bring her up so you can at least meet her. Maybe she will stick with me. This is Miss Kitty. Can you say hi? She just wants to curl up. Anyway, um, I am coming to you because, as the title suggests, we're facing an epidemic, and I'm just going to cut to the chase, and I'll share more about who I am if you're new to me here in a little bit. But on Thursday, which December 9th, I lost my partner of 12 years. It was sudden, and the initial reports were that they thought it was cardiac arrest. They also went into congestive heart failure, possibly. I've yet to hear the coroner's report. So, but the point to this isn't to play on anybody's emotions, other than the fact that well, it is to play. I'm not playing on your emotions. I want to strike a nerve. I want to strike a nerve. It's time that we face the reality. And so it's taken me a couple of days to wrap my head around what happened, and I'm still processing a lot. I was there for his final breath. And I'm not going to lie to you and express the fact that I was pissed, because here I am advocating, for how we can reinvent the body. That's actually a Discord community I've started, and I talk a lot about essential oils because of their ability to help reinvent the body. But it begins with the way we believe in our body or disbelieve our body. And that's crucial. So, like I said, this is the epidemic that we're facing. It's destroying us. And in the case of Steve, he bought into the beliefs that of all the stories that we have culturally about how the body declines with age. He bought into all of them. And some of our biggest discussions were around what he just couldn't get into that space of, like, I can reverse this. The way I treat myself is based on the way I think of myself. The way I treat my body is the way I think of my body. I don't know if I'm articulating this right. Our actions reflect our belief systems. I'm going to say that again. Our actions reflect our belief systems. And we currently have a culture that has a story around what it means to age, and more specifically about how the body breaks down with time. And in Steve's case, he went from a very vibrant young man, middle-aged man, to older middle-aged man. But you could see his body declining. I mean, and this is where I got really, I won't say pissed, and it wasn't at him. It just really struck a nerve with me, because one of the things that I talk about a lot is the value to actually identifying what your body needs. What your body needs. Stop listening to all of everybody's suggestions on, number one, how you should eat. I mean, this is crap. It's total crap. Because a year ago, at one point, Steve said he was a vegan in his life. I never knew him to be a vegan, but maybe he was. I'm not saying that he was being dishonest. Miss Kitty, could you? No, we're not going to get violent right now. We're just going to be kind, okay? She's wanting to play with my sleeve. I never saw him be a vegan. When I did, I did know that he went through a time where he was very, very much into grains, and yeah, he really loved his grains. I know that there were some vegetables that he ate, but I never noticed him being a vegan. And if he, if he had a predominant diet of plant-based foods, they certainly weren't a lot of greens. Just say it that way. But nevertheless, he wanted to go more into the carnivore type of diet. And that's when he started seeing his body change. He started putting on weight. And I mean, he was very much into weightlifting. And so he felt like this would be something that would be advantageous to do. So he did. But again, we started seeing, but then again, I also know that he would indulge quite frequently in desserts and sweets. So it wasn't the meat, okay? It wasn't the meat. So, but whoever, if you've just heard that a carnivore diet put weight on him, it wasn't the meat that did it. He liked to tell people that he was healthy and that he had a healthy diet. But behind the scenes, I was witness to his eating habits. And he really did love a good piece of pumpkin pie and pumpkin pie. I mean, he loved pie, and there was things that he loved. And so he was very indulgent. That's a really great way to put it. He was just very indulgent. And although he lived in this idea that he was being healthy, he was indulging in foods that, a lot of it processed foods. Okay. And so fast forward a few years, I didn't like to keep sweets in the house. So it was not customary that he would have these things around and he could just indulge in them. He would oftentimes go get them himself. And he did oftentimes as well eat them in the privacy of his own space, meaning when he was alone. So about a year ago, his brother wanted him to go into being highly a keto diet, and you just forget the plants and just go total carnivore. And I mean, no more grains, no more carbs, no more veggies, no more nothing, just heavy fat foods. Um, Now, we were taking care of his father at that point during the pandemic, and his father had a propensity for sweets as well. So now we were surrounded by them again. So he always struggled with his weight at that point. But in his mind, he was making healthy choices. But I started watching his behaviors begin to change, and I would bring it up, but being sovereign, he he felt like he was okay. And again, when the advent of the pandemic came out, and you may or may not have seen my videos back then, and you may or may not have read my blogs. I don't know for sure. I can't keep track of if you were able to check out any of those. But that said, there was a time where I actually came forward and said things like hesperidin, which is a bioflavonoid that is found in citrus fruit, actually binds to the ACE2 receptor. So there was things that I had found nutritionally as well as oil-wise that bind to the ACE2 receptor. They actually support the hormonal system. They support the immune system. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to show. In fact, I was telling my son this just yesterday, that there's plenty of reports, even about how you want to include essential oils if you've been vaccinated. The value to pairing them for better results. So scientists understand the value to essential oils, but there again, Steve was not, although it's something that I have lived by for over 30 years. And so I will tell you right now, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Tammy Davis. My career started in pharmacology. I have 30 years plus working with and studying essential oils, to the degree where I am familiar with them chemically and how they impact human health at the cellular level. You are just shaking this world up. Um, anyway, I don't know why she's all over my lap right now. This is interesting. Are you going to say hello again, or are you just going to? No, she's just going to lay down. Okay, so anyway, so as I said, my career started in pharmacology. I have well over 30 years of studying and working with essential oils to the degree where I understand their chemical profiles and how they impact human health at the cellular level. And this research has been going on for hundreds of years, and it continues to go on to this day. Like I said, I mean, in 2020, there's a number of peer-reviewed studies that have been released, evidence that shows what very specific chemicals within essential oils and how they can improve your body's responses to these viruses, no matter what the virus is. So that said, though, Steve had an issue around constantly using oils. He felt like they weren't doing him any good. But the man lived on chronic stress. I mean, seriously, chronic stress. He would spend most of his days listening to political and economic information, just being filled with all kinds of information. He was concerned about his own finances. He was constantly had his fingers in everything because he was worried about everything. He never gave his mind a rest. Never. He had respiratory issues for as long as I've known him. That had his belief was that was due to the fact that he'd been exposed to chlorine while working in water treatment, and there was some damage done to his lungs. So he has coughed and had issues, like I said, for many, many years. But there again, it didn't get any better. He developed sleep apnea, where I was trying to use oils on him, and then he didn't want to use oils because he said that, again, although they were helping him to breathe, they were actually slowing down that sleep apnea. He complained that they made him get up and go to the restroom too much during the night. And, and he goes, that's making me tired. I'm like, no, actually the sleep apnea is making you tired. But, again, I can only do so much for someone, and it was very difficult for me. And it's even difficult for me to sit here right now and share this with you because I, on some level, feel like I failed. And there again, I have no control over how anybody chooses to view their body. So at this point, if you're someone who really, really believes in the stories that you've heard throughout your life that says that your health is just destined to decline, you don't want it to decline, but that's kind of like what you see, and these are affecting your choices that you make. Maybe it's eating things that you probably shouldn't be eating. But there again, like I started this whole conversation, is you've got to learn how to understand what your body needs. So here we have people who have, suggested to Steve veganism, vegetarianism. He wanted to just eat plants and meat there for a while. He just wanted to do veggies and meat. But I'm never confident at this point that he just stuck with that. And then last year it was keto. Okay. And a lot of this comes up because I was just yesterday introduced to somebody that via the internet that is very, very much about carnivore diet. Now, I do understand his agenda, which I highly respect. And there again, though, a carnivore diet is not something that is for everybody. One of the statements that he made was that there was a study that was done, and he actually put it on one of his videos. It's dated September 1939, and it was talking about how they were studying children 6 months of age and older who had breastfed up until the age of 6 months, and then they began to offer them food. And these children were finding themselves naturally selecting like organ meats and, and muscle meats. And I just thought meat was muscle. I don't know. But, and eggs and dairy. I mean, they were kind of like naturally gravitating to animal sources. And he said that's just natural because we're wired for that. Okay. And people go, oh, yeah, our ancestors were like that. Oh, no, you're a different species. You're a different species. And mind you, I go back to the date that I just quoted, September 1939. Okay, so that means whatever research they conducted, it's only on 15 children, mind you, but the research that they conducted was, in fact, prior to the introduction of man-made chemicals used as preservatives and pesticides to begin with. We were just now getting into medications. But that said, and I will put this link in the description box, there was a TED Talk video. It's only, I forget how long it was. I think it's like 8 minutes. And she's talking about endocrine disruptors because this is something that I focus on. Okay. And endocrine disruptors, or these particular chemicals, like I just mentioned, preservatives and pesticides and so forth, started coming into full use in the 1940s, to the point where by 2012, 2014, we had well over 80,000 of them that we were currently using. And an endocrine disruptor is a chemical that has the ability to influence hormonal function. Okay, you produce your own endocrine disruptors when you get stressed. Okay, when you can't dial down that stress, you are depleting your body of oxygen. And therefore, and this is what causes, well, first of all, your respiratory rate goes up. Okay, so now there's more shallow breathing. And when you are in that heightened state of alert, right, on guard, stress, or your reactions to your stressors, what you've got going on now is oxidation happening. So now that's eating up your oxygen levels. So it's crucial, it's imperative that you actually breathe. I mean, deliberately breathe. Get into breath work, find some sort of breath work and start doing it, because otherwise you are already behind the 8 ball. Because I'm not going to get into why breathing helps to de-escalate the stress response, but it does in fact keep you at least oxygenated enough until you can figure out a way to better improve your body, your mental reactions to your stressors. And this is something that Steve just was not willing to entertain. So the diet didn't matter. I watched a man go, like I said, I just told you all the different types of diets I watched him eat. He never changed his behind the scenes behaviors, because I've heard it. And I'm sure you've heard it too. I'm going to die anyway. But how do you want to go out? That's the question on the table, is how do you want to go out? What is your vision for your last breath? What is your vision for the last day before your last breath? Are you out walking in the sunshine? Are you laughing and loving life? Or are you going to be sickly? Or is it going to become as a sudden shock to everybody because all of a sudden you just fucking collapse? See, you get to decide how this is going to go. And I absolutely mean that. You get to decide. I don't care what you've been told. I don't care what diets people suggest you should be using. What you need to do is tap into your own innate wisdom and start eating according to what makes you actually feel alive. You need to include essential oils. One of the things that I was listening to is this guy talks about plants and how plants don't want you to eat them because that's why they're bitter, because you're eating, they're producing these chemicals and that's what makes them bitter. And they're trying to tell you that your body doesn't need it. That's crap. Okay. One of the things, like I said, this whole idea of natural selection of foods that he was talking about in the 1930s, I, as an infant, so mind you, I was one of those kids that was placed on table food at a very early age because the pediatrician suggested that I be starting to eat table food very early. I naturally gravitated towards vegetables. Couldn't stand milk, couldn't stand meat. Never have, and I never did, and I never have. Never, ever, ever. Vegetables and plant-based foods are where I felt most alive. I even hated lima beans. That's the one thing I did absolutely hate. And come to find out, I'm a type A blood, and it's suggested that we don't eat lima beans, that they're not good for us. Well, you know what? I hate them. Now, here's the interesting thing. I'm not getting into blood type diets. I will tell you this straight up. A blood type, after doing the research on blood type, and I actually wrote about this, and this came as a question from the very same person, the brother-in-law that actually told Steve that he should be keto. He suggested that maybe I write about essential oils and blood type. Well, when I did my research on it, blood type is actually an allergic reaction to the environment. You're producing antibodies to the environment. So this is going to actually suggest the types of foods that your body's better responsive to. Now, where does essential oils come into play? Well, and let's go back to the whole concept of the plants don't want you to eat them, because this is what they're producing their stress chemicals, and that's the way of keeping you at arm's length. It's not true. First of all, if you go back into Ayurvedic medicine, the aperitif, and that's not Ayurvedic, but if you've ever been to, they have aperitifs. That's the reason why oftentimes many cultures would start with a salad. The bitterness actually begins the digestive juices flowing. Another factor is an essential oil is in fact a stress response. It's in response to a stressor. It's the plant's reaction to a stressor. And as I like to say, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, but that's not mine. That's Sir Isaac Newton. But the point is that the plants are actually producing chemicals that would benefit our system, because our bodies are also producing chemicals, as I mentioned earlier, in response to stressors. Our oxidative stress, okay, it actually has a purpose in the system, and it's part of it is protection, and the other part is survival, and it's trying to survive a threat. This is the whole concept of the body's reaction. This is the stress response. This is the stress mechanism at its finest, and the plants have the very same thing. But when you incorporate essential oils, it now begins to help reverse the oxidation process that's happening in our system. But the only way you're going to make these selections and begin to personalize even your choice in essential oils, it's not just diets, even your choice in essential oils matters to you. It's not about what a book says. It's not about what you can pull up on your phone. None of that matters. You've got to dial in and figure out what best suits your system. And that comes down to food. Again, you select your foods based on, eat something. If you feel vibrant and alive, then there you go. Keep with it. Stick with wholesome foods. Stick with pure foods. Avoid all this synthetic processed shit. You can't go wrong if you're going to just at least select wholesome foods. And the same thing goes for your oils. Select pure, genuine, essential oils. Again, I do understand the agenda that's going on with this particular individual. I highly respect his agenda, because not everybody is meant to be plant-based. But not everybody's meant to be 100% carnivore, and not everybody's meant to be 70% carnivore and 30% plant. It varies on the body. But the beginning, before you can make any of those decisions, you've got to be willing to reinvent your mindset. In order to reinvent your body, you have to see your body working to your advantage. You have to see that your body is doing everything it can. And if you would like to have a conversation about this stress response, please schedule a discovery call with me. Let's talk further about how this works for you, or how this applies to you. Because the stress mechanism is real. It is what's oxidizing the chemicals in your system in order, like I said, to keep you protected, to help various cycles take place, whether it be a menstrual cycle or a sleep cycle. All of this is activated by inflammation. Inflammation has a role in the body. It is not something that you can thwart 100% of the time. They've even been able to prove that part of the intermittent inflammation actually helps the body repair olfactory stem cells. So your sense of smell doesn't go away body can actually repair itself, but it has to have inflammation. This is what happens when you lift weights. You create inflammation, the body repairs itself, now you get stronger muscles. That's the whole point. But you have to understand your body. And this is my biggest frustration with Steve, is like, how could you actually be a weightlifter and understand that you can create inflammation in the body, but look what the body can do? And yet you won't get out of your head long enough to understand that all these stories that you're believing, you're creating. So how you believe is what your body's going to reflect. Steve believed that he was destined to be an aging, heavy, overweight older man with other issues. He just really believed, right down to no testosterone. He believed it. And he, I'm not going to go into all of his everything else about him. I was talking about his diet because that's crucial, but he believed all of that crap. He just couldn't. And again, and you probably, maybe you feel the same way. I don't know, but there's plenty of evidence to show that it's real. Look at the people around. I'm talking to men telling me this all the time. Which, I'm sorry, but if you're going to talk about it, you're going to create it. Energy goes where your energy flows, where your focus goes. So if you're going to focus on the breakdown, you're going to focus on the degeneration, you're going to focus on what you don't want, that's exactly what you're going to get. If you're going to focus on what you do want, if you're going to focus on reinventing the way you see and it takes effort, because we've been conditioned quite well. And the thing is with these endocrine disruptors, like I mentioned earlier, with regards to them coming into full use beginning in the 1940s, it's clear in this this video. Please watch it. They talk about how it's programming our body. It's programming the quality of our health as adults, because our hormonal system is already hijacked before we ever get into this world. That's not to say that it's not reversible. It's not to say that you cannot override this, but you're going to need essential oils to do it, because essential oils are, the body will respond to natural chemicals before it responds to man-made chemicals. So if you really want to be healthy, then the introduction of things like essential oils and wholesome foods are your key to winning in this life and living a vibrant life until your last breath. So I'm going to leave you with that. And like I said, I have a discovery call waiting for you if you'd like to chat. And that link is in the box below. See you soon. Missy Kitty.